5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Atomic Salt Live Show. This is the weekly live show where we're going to discuss everything in the tabletop hobby world. As always, I'm joined by Casey Roberts. Casey, how are you today?
I am Casey.
Interesting voice today.
I gotta do something to keep it fresh, you know?
See, you finally upgraded on the headphones.
Yeah, you know, I've got the Logitech wireless headphones going on here, so hopefully you guys can actually hear me this week. Not that you would want to begin with, so this show will suck more than usual.
So, all right, let's discuss what we've done this week. What have you done in the hobby world, Casey?
You bet. So last week I showed you guys that I was starting some markers. These are based off of the Relic Knights booster pack, so I've gotten them all base coated and washed. We started playing with some of the metallics here. I really have no idea what any of these things are, but they look kind of cool and kind of funky. But a little bit of dry brushing, a little bit of weathering, and these are all going to be set to go.
Nice.
So that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to, Alan?
Let's see. What have I been up to? Oh, I did play some War Machine this past week. Out of the blue, buddy called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to play?" I'm like, "Oh, sure." I've got a little bit of downtime. No real projects at school, so I was like, "All right." So got to play a little bit of that on Thursday. Got my butt completely handed to me. Goes to show you that your skills do decrease without play. And then what else? Let's see. I did end up drop.
What's that behind? Just behind you.
Hold on, I'm getting there.
You're a tease.
Oh yes, I am a tease. Let's see. I know I keep saying I'm gonna hold off on buying GW, but they just get paid for a commission. So I picked up the Harlequin Solitaire.
Ooh, that is a really pretty model.
Yeah, and it's very bland in their photo, but I'm like, there's so much I could do to that. Solitaires or Harlequins are very bright and fancy, so.
Yeah, hold on. Let's see that blister again real quick and flip it over. That looks bigger than the usual blister.
Yeah, it's probably maybe a quarter of a normal sprue.
Wow, just for one guy. That's a lot of pieces.
There's a lot of parts to this thing, and funny, like I saw a thread about somebody complaining about Malifaux, that you can't buy a figure in Malifaux without gluing on their face. And lo and behold, this guy has his face. It's a separate bit.
So he's got kind of a wild pose. Are you thinking you're going to need to pin him at all?
It's all plastic, and it's got the little scenic base part. So I think it's more so it's going to be weighting. Because I've noticed a lot of the Harlequins are very dynamically posed and all that. But as we've seen before, a lot of those miniatures, they're very dynamic, but they don't stand very well.
Yeah, what I've found with stuff like that is because with those dynamic bases, they're actually hollow on the inside. So you can actually take a little bit of hot glue, drop the hot glue in there, and glue in a couple of pennies to give it a bit of weight. Or like a metal washer or something like that.
Yeah, so we'll see. And I'm not sure if that's a 25 or 32 mil base. So we'll have to get the calipers out.
Have to get the calipers out, but I'm willing to bet it's a 25.
Probably. And as you were discussing earlier, this here So Saturday, came home, and my box from Wrath of Kings showed up.
So while everybody else was out buying flowers or stuffing their face with chocolate, you were rolling around naked on a bed with a whole bunch of little plastic miniatures, weren't you?
No, I was fully clothed, and I was at my desk assembling and sniffing glue.
And then you rolled around naked. I told you, folks, you didn't want to hear from me this week.
That's probably what you did on Saturday, and let's keep that to yourself. Because your wife does watch this show, and we don't want her to beat you up.
You know what? It is being recorded, so decades from now, my children will watch all of this, so I shouldn't say anything to embarrass them.
So your third child will know exactly when they were procreated.
Sure. Two little ones of me is already enough. But you said you were clipping and building stuff.
Yeah.
Get up.
So here we have the Fulong Dragon.
That is huge. How many pieces you got going on there?
This has let's see. This is like one of our more bigger kits. We got the tail, the main body, the forearms, the head is 3 separate pieces and then got the little Fu Manchu thing. And then there's a rider on top that's got 4 pieces.
Wow. So is this like an HQ style unit or like?
No, this is like a
special
heavy
character?
support. This is like a heavy support character.
Okay.
And yeah, came with some alternate bits as per the Kickstarter, so got that all assembled, and I'm really impressed by like the level of quality in the sculpt.
Yeah, even just on our crappy webcams here, I can see there's like you got individual scales modeled all over it,
Oh yeah, and
and just the details on his face.
and there's a little bit of mold lines to it, but nothing much. It's the kind of like the resin plastic, but it's softer. It doesn't dull my blade when I'm trying to clean it, so it's a lot better than some other plastics.
Okay.
And then I got this guy, the War Child, same faction as the other guy.
Man, that's like an orc or something then. It's like a World of Warcraft style almost.
Kind of like so. Believe it or not, so there's pigmen in here. There's lobstermen. There's shark guys. There's werewolves and vampires. But everybody in this universe are human. And what transformed these people is gods and demons. So they get a blessing or a curse, and they turn into these supernatural people.
Well, I guess it could be worse for me. Could be a pigman.
Yeah, I didn't get that army. And then I have here the shield breaker for the Garitsi.
Okay, so that looks almost like an Anubis style, like Egyptian jackal or wolf or something.
It is a werewolf with a big axe and power armor. in the book itself,
So if we put him in orbit, would he be a space wolf?
Possibly. Yeah, I'm just barely digging into this. There's a lot of stuff. I only went in at the $200, and I've got a lot of miniatures to assemble.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty huge Kickstarter when it was all said and done. Speaking of huge Kickstarters, have you seen Exploding Kittens? Where they at $6.3 million right now?
They are blowing up all the records.
You know, I'm almost a little bit nervous about it. Like, is it getting too big? Is it just going to implode? Are they going to fall down on trying to deliver that many orders?
No, I'm pretty sure with this level, they're going to get a lot of higher quality manufacturers knocking at their door. If they haven't already, if they've done their homework, they know who they're going to talk to first.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's making me a little excited is they haven't gotten crazy with stretch goals. All they've done is they've upgraded the amount of cards by a little bit, not a lot, and put it in kind of a nice box.
That's I think the key thing on doing Kickstarter is you want to make sure you're within your means. We've seen a few Kickstarters in the past where their initial goal was not what they needed to actually produce.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can all look at like Relic Knights as something that as the opposite, or maybe Myth, where their eyes got bigger than what they were actually able to handle. So, speaking of Myth, in a few weeks we'll be seeing another Myth Kickstarter.
Yes, I think, and they're going to like a Egypt style, from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure we'll see a couple different other styles there, but it's different. It's kind of nice. I don't think we really see a lot of Egyptian-styled stuff on the table.
Maybe we should reach out and get an interview with those guys.
Yeah, that'd be fun. They seem like good guys. They're up in the Great North. I bet they do a lot of drinking.
Especially with this winter they're having.
No kidding.
So that's all that I've done this week.
Okay. Hey, you want to see something cool?
Depends. What do you got?
Don't worry.
The first hit's free.
Here, check this out. This is the new Ariadne tank hunters for Infinity.
Nice. That looks
Yeah. We knew he was coming. I think a lot of people assumed that it was going to be a redo of the autocannon variant, but instead we got the AP HMG. And man, I think this guy just looks good. He looks a little bit like Cobra Commander, though, just in green.
Yeah, a little bit in the face. I do like he's like the Sekbon heavy rocket launcher. He's got that cocky attitude. He's not really showing off his weapon. He's just like, yep, this is what I got.
Yeah, it's like the Fusiliers we've seen, like the guy with the heavy rocket launcher. He's just kind of leaning on it. I know there's some people who feel like every miniature should be in an action pose, or pointing their gun or aiming. But I think this is just a really nice. It's a subtle piece. Like he's not gonna be the first one that you pick up, but once you do, you're really gonna start noticing all the details and how wonderful it is.
And maybe even too that he's not, because of the dynamic pose, he won't be such a target on the battlefield.
This is true, but tank hunters are camo anyways, so they have camo, so they start as a camo token on the board, or at least they should. So it'll be hard to see. But yeah, like he's got a great like squad automatic weapon. I guess that's kind of Ariadne's shtick, is they're very modern day military, but this guy just looks sharp. He just looks like what you'd expect a Russian soldier to look like 10, 15 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Yeah. Now, on the total opposite end of the spectrum, this is Infinity doing low tech. We've also seen Infinity, what they look like when they're doing high tech. Check out this bad boy. Meet Tusser, the Agima warrant officer for the assault subsection of Aleph.
Nice. That's a Feuerbach?
Feuerbach, I think is how we pronounce it. Yeah, we finally get to see one. It's
the new version.
A little big and clunky for like a two-shot disposable weapon, But
is it me, or does it kind of slope at the end?
Yeah, I've been looking at that a lot. So if you look at the middle picture, it looks like it's pretty straight. But then the the picture on the right looks like it's got a bit of a twist, kind of inwards. And so I don't know. I mean, this is all white metal, so
It could be just performance issues.
yeah, he needs a little blue pill.
Should have taken the blue pill.
But everybody's been talking about who this guy looks like, and I think everybody has a different opinion. You know, I've seen everything from, you know, I personally think that, well, I'm just totally blanking now. I feel horrible. I'm like, oh, he looks like...
I do. I mean, you got to give whoever sculpted this credit. He even has like little swoop in his hair, the curl.
Yep, he's got a little faux hawk going on. James Franco, that's who I think it looks like.
Okay.
But I've even heard people think it looks like Pee Wee Herman. So, I guess a generic white dude with brown hair.
Do we have any rules on this guy yet?
We still do not have any rules. So,
Really?
Really. Chances are we'll see him whenever the Army Builder gets updated. But for now, he is just a showpiece.
But he's not even in the book, so that's interesting. So is he going to be like, was it the campaign or the Falls or whatever it was called?
Acheron Falls.
Yeah.
You know, here's the thing. We have no idea what's coming out next for Corvus Belli. They've kind of talked around Acheron Falls and maybe a few other different ideas, but we just haven't seen anything yet. And they refuse to be pinned down on it. So all we know is it's been reported that he's got marksman level X, and he's got a native ballistic skill 14, which means that if marksman level X means that you reduce your burst down to 1, but you add 6 to your ballistic skill.
With
So
the Frarbach. That's going to be nasty.
yeah, this guy's going to be a nightmare in ARO. You know, probably because he's an Agema, means he's going to have MSV2, more than likely. I guess the real question that everybody's asking right now is whether or not he'll be able to form link teams like some of the other warrant officers have been able to. But who knows? I mean, that's going to be really, really powerful if they do allow it. So 50-50 on that one.
Yeah, you would not want to see 3 of those guys in a link.
Yeah, you know, his compatriots will either be packing a missile launcher, a multi-rifle, or a Mark 12. And again, none of those are weapons that you want to see an additional shot coming out of.
At least he has his man purse with him.
He does. It would not be a left if they didn't have man purses. So, and he's actually sporting like a very nice dress. So.
Well, I mean, speaking of Infinity and painted miniatures, that's
what you got,
that's an
Alan?
Angel. We know, well, most of the stuff is painted by Angel, but there's another studio painter there. But our good buddy Angel Heraldez did post this on his Facebook page, and let's share it.
Show us what you got.
Now, I really wish I would have seen this in person, but he had it. I guess he's holding back on some of his pretties.
Holy cow. Is that Scarface?
That is a Scarface type tag.
Man, he looks like he's been through hell.
Yeah. But you got the female writer here, so it's not exactly Scarface.
What model was that female based off of? I don't recognize her or the pose or anything.
I think it's one of their older sculpts. I think it's a pilot.
Is that the Margariba pilot?
I'm not quite sure. It's an older sculpt. But, yeah, I mean, he did some nice battle damage on this thing. This tag has seen better
God.
days.
How did he do that? Like, that's a big chunk of metal. How did he take a hunk out of it like that?
My guess would be Dremel and then go back over it with some, like, green stuff just to give it that clay look. But, yeah. So, yeah. This is a very... another good example of Angel Heraldus' book. We'll probably see this in the book.
I hope so. I hope so.
And
yeah. Everything he posts, the more excited I get about it. Because it sounds like the book's actually going to be very little on airbrushing.
yeah. Well, it's all different steps. And then this next one, I actually saw this in person. It's The Hungry. This was sculpted for Angel. It's using a 3D printer. This is kind of like a one-off product, but it's not. We probably won't ever see this being sold unless the original sculptor decides to make more.
Did he even model like saliva coming off of those teeth?
Oh yeah, he's got veins, just the ichor and the gore.
That is just insane. Like, disgusting and insane.
Yeah. This just goes to show you how impressive his skills are.
You know, it's interesting because I see this and I think he's using very, very different techniques from what you usually see like on his miniatures. I mean, you look at it, you can still say, yeah, that's Angel's work, but it's still different. You know, you can see that he's mixing up his techniques because he's doing something a little different.
Well, it's bust. Busts are a lot bigger than other.
Some busts are bigger than others.
Very true. Very true.
So, all right, with that, I could talk about Infinity and painting all night, but I really want to get to our main topic for tonight.
Yeah. Now, this little bit here got you like fanboy excited. I never saw you freak out so much over in an email. So much so that you're actually giving up, or you're gonna sell off one of your other boxes of miniatures for this.
Yeah, you know. So
what came out this week, or what was announced?
Spartan Games, the creators of Firestorm Armada, has, and of course everybody's heard this by now, since we're going to be a few days late, but they have licensed with 343 Studios and Microsoft to produce a Halo-themed fleet game. Do we have a title? No. I don't think we're going to, but to be honest, they could just call it the Halo Fleet game and everybody will buy it. They don't need anything better than that.
Well, do you got photos for us?
You know what? I got a lot of photos. Do you want to just dive into it?
Go right ahead.
So Spartan Games.
I'm actually surprised you're not wearing a Spartan helmet.
If I had one, I would be. So do not tempt me, sir. Do not tempt me. All right, so can you see this?
Oh, nice.
So we're going to see two fleets in the game. We're going to see the Covenant and the UNSC, which are the humans. So while you're looking at this, I want, while you're looking at all the pretty, I want you to look at this scale up here. This ship is clocking in at 15 centimeters. For a little bit of scale, there's roughly 33 centimeters in a foot. So that 15 inches, we're sitting at a little over 4 inches long for this guy. This is a big frickin' ship. Then scaling down. And this actually so what you're seeing here, only one of these ships should actually look familiar to you, and that's the guy in the middle. the CCS class battlecruiser.
Those are the ones that always had like the funny names, right?
Yeah, the Covenant really like, although the UNSC they have like really weird names, but they're kind of cool. We think that is so like you'll have ships called the Spirit of Fire. Like, man, that's an awesome name. Until you think, well, what happens if you have to try and like say it quickly, or you're saying it like a million times over, like you're on the ship. So kind of silly, but I like it. But this middle cruiser, this is what we were seeing a lot of in the Halo games. So this design up here is actually totally new. This is something that Spartan Games created for this game. Now, before you ask, the answer, is this canon? The answer is yes to that. Because
Nice.
everything that Spartan is developing for this game is getting vetted, verified, and approved by Microsoft and 343 Studios.
Now, I've read a few of the books. I read the, yeah, and Covenant were pretty nasty. They had their plasma weapons that just tore apart the UNSC fleets.
Yeah, and you kind of see it. Okay, so the Halo games are actually probably some of like the worst storytelling in games that they've ever done. Like it's just bad, except for ODST. Everybody thinks that that's like the worst game, but I think it's the best one, at least from a storytelling perspective. But if you get into the books are actually really good, and they expand on this a lot more. And like you're talking about, we know that the Covenant are just tearing the UNSC apart with, very fast ships, just these incredibly powerful ship or shields and weapons, and the humans are just fighting a rolling retreat for the most part, until we actually start being able to take out a few ships, start reverse engineering their weapons, and start getting better, making better armament for ourselves. That's what you see later on in the games.
Yeah, the UNSC has the rail guns.
Yep,
And
the
then,
max cannons.
yep.
Yeah, so let's take some more looks at these. And this little thing is just up here. So, and before we go any further, this is not even the biggest ship that they're talking about. They're talking about doing an assault cruiser, and if this scale is maintained, which everything that we've seen so far has been to scale, that assault carrier will actually be close to 11 inches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and these guys are going to get some phenomenal detail out of this. So,
Yep, there's the beauties.
Yep. And the nice thing is these 3D renders, in a lot of cases, Spartan Games was actually able to take the renders straight from the video games to do their initial designs. So the scale is actually very, very good. So a lot of beautiful detail there along the underside. Too bad nobody's ever going to see it during the game. Yeah. Look at that. Way more detail on the bottom, but nobody's ever going to see it. So here's the 3 ships again. You just see kind of a plan form here. And you can see they've done a really good job of carrying like the design aesthetics, scaling it up and scaling it down. One of the reasons for that is they've been talking, and I guess Spartan Games has gotten access to a lot of the designer notes and a lot of like the design tenets for it. They've seen concept art that nobody's ever seen before, sketches, even some 3D renders that never actually made it into the games. So these guys have a treasure trove of artwork and inspiration to work from.
Everything you'd kill for.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of the stuff that they're just like casually tossing around, people would pay hundreds of dollars to put up on their wall. So what I really like, you can see here, is kind of like that big hollow. It's almost like a 2 layers of a ship. So obviously, when they cast this, it'll probably be 2 different pieces that you'll have to assemble later on.
But like I said, Spartans, they've Firestorm Armada. They've got their land-based one. They know how to make ships, and they know how to make these kits pretty well.
They do. Firestorm Armada ships, if you look at the level of detail that they're doing here for these, it's not surprising. And you know that they're not being ambitious, because this is actually the amount of detail that they're putting into their current range. Now, they are actually doing these in plastic versus resin. It's been announced. These are going to be hard
Really?
plastic ships.
Kind of so like what Hot Core Games has done with Drop Zone.
Yes, just bigger. But really, when you start looking at some of these ships and some of these designs, it would have to be in plastic. I mean, you could get away with resin in some cases, but when you're talking about ships that are going to be, 3 to 4 inches long, resin is really just, it's starting to get too heavy.
Well, that and you can make, as long as there's no bad undercuts, you can really make the production easy.
Yep.
Oh, that's pretty.
Gosh, I know, isn't it?
Gotta love those Mac cannons.
Yep. So we've got an Epoch class carrier here. Now, notice that I say carrier. What do carriers do in the modern day? Like, what do our aircraft carriers do?
They hold aircraft.
That's right. So not only are we going to be seeing like big capital ships moving around, but Spartan has also been talking about having small fighter ships, and which is something that's been talked about a lot in the Halo universe. We have fighters, we have bombers. Everybody knows the iconic Pelican drop ship. From everything that they've been talking about, and it looks like if we're having carriers, expect to see smaller fighters as well.
Now, you said they have 2 factions right now. Is there ever going to be room for expansion?
That's the big question, I think, and that'll really that'll determine whether or not this game has legs to it. Now, obviously, the 2 big ones are UNSC and the Covenant fleets, but they do, if you play the games, you know that there is the Flood as well. So,
Well, then I guess Star Wars Attack Wing only has 2 factions, and that does pretty well.
they do, and they managed to get away with that by having a lot of variety within those factions. And they also have a few other mechanics for customization. There's a lot of cards that can go along with that. So if you could take, say, your UNSC fleet, but then you modify it by putting Admiral keys on one ship and Captain keys on another ship, and you have Spartan assaulting parties or Spartan boarding parties, So that might help change it up, but
Also they had was it the Separatists? So you could see asteroid farms. So who knows?
Yeah, you could see separatists on both sides. You'll see human separatists. You'll also see Sangheili. I can never pronounce those guys. The elites. We know that they actually separated off. Now, whether or not they'll actually be their own faction, or if it'd be like a sub-faction that you might see, or maybe a slightly different play style.
That's all down in the future.
Yep. But there's also the chance of doing Flood and maybe even Forerunners. So and then after that, who knows? But I mean, there's at least 2 to 3 different factions that they could introduce later on, I think. So, but again, just admire the detail, like on the engines, or kind of underneath these gull wings they have there. Again, everything is scaled for size. So here's kind of one of one of your cruisers. Again, this isn't one that we've seen in the games. It's very similar to it, but all the design aesthetics are there. Kind of like these big slab sides, and very utilitarian. There's not a lot of gracefulness to their ships. And then smaller frigates like what we've seen before. This is actually something that we've seen in game. So it's nice to see the silhouettes and shapes that we're used to manifesting itself. So yeah, the Paris class frigate. If you've played Halo 3, you've seen this ship before. But again, look at this size here, man. This guy's pushing about 4 inches.
Nice.
So you are just going to have some amazing detail in this guy. And the sad thing is, the first thing I think of is like how easy it's going to be to paint. You're going to paint this guy gray, throw a black wash on it, pick out a couple of bits, and call it good. Which is kind of insulting because there's so much detail that you can do.
But then you can do an oil wash, get out get out your graphite pencil, give it that carbonizing look, put a little OSL in the back. Oh, there's a lot of stuff you could do with that.
Yeah, and that's just on the ships that we've seen. I mean, so some of the bigger stuff that they've announced, and there's been a lot of ships that they've mentioned in particular. So the Long Night of Solace, which is the Covanent Super Carrier, and also the UNSC Infinity. That's the one that we saw in Halo 4, which are just massive, massive ships compared to these, which could be clocking in at close to a foot. The downside of this is that it means that scale-wise, it isn't really going to fit in well with Firestorm Armada, unfortunately. That was my big hope when it came out. I was hoping that these would essentially be like an expansion or alternate factions for using Firestorm rules. So, you could take like your Works Raptors fleet and throw them up against Covenant, and just have like, Battle of the Cheater fleets or something. But it really looks like this is going to be a standalone game. Now, I think Spartan is going to do a lot. They've learned a lot from Firestorm Armada. And they're on their 2.5 edition of their rules. And I'd be blown away if we didn't see some very Firestorm-esque rules for this. But it's really shaping up to be its own game at this point.
Did they give us a date?
2015.
Well, December 31st is 2015, so I guess we'll see.
Hey, they've still got another 10 plus months to go.
But, there's a lot of conventions there, too. I mean, we have the Las Vegas Open is this weekend. Mm-hmm. We got Adepticon coming out next month. We've got Gen Con still in August. There's a lot of conventions, and like we've seen, a lot of these companies wait till conventions to announce. So,
yep.
We'll probably see more.
Microsoft has some new Halo. They have a new Halo game that they've been working on, and they're starting to pull the cover off a little bit. So I imagine that as they start building the hype for Halo 5, we'll start seeing the hype building for this as well.
Cool.
So, but yeah, I'm ready to liquidate a little bit of stuff I have sitting in the closet to free up some funds for this, because I am just massively excited. One, I've wanted to find a fleet game to get into for a while. Gothica just doesn't do it for me. I mean, I've heard the rules are okay, but the game has been out of print forever.
Yeah, Gothic wasn't supported anymore, and you can't buy the stuff anymore.
Nope, can't do that. Firestorm. There's a lot of Dreadfleet, or Spartan has like a ship one, and that just it's okay, but I like the idea of like space fleets dueling it out. And so I had already been looking at Firestorm Armada, And I've been kind of settling in on a ship style, mostly because I'm like, hey, those guys look like the UNSC. I dig that. And then Spartan goes, well, why take something close when you can have exactly what you're looking for? So I am just tickled pink, and I cannot wait to see this game come out. And you will see me rolling naked on the bed with these models when it does come out. These jagged, pointy, probably the Covenant. They're not as pokey, but you never know. Sometimes you like a little pokey. I don't judge.
Well, folks, on that bombshell, what are
Good
your
night, everybody.
I mean, so what did you guys think? We just discussed a few things in this episode. I mean, any of you getting into Wrath of Kings? Any of you excited for Spartan Halo? Which is a good name. I mean, it's Spartan, so.
How many of you guys just think that On Hell should just quit painting right now so the rest of us don't fall further and further behind?
Or maybe he should start doing video tutorials.
I'd buy it.
Let us know. I mean, comment section down below. Tell us your thoughts. We'd really love to hear from you.
All right, you got anything else for us tonight, Alan?
I think that is it for me this week. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. Tune in next time. If you're on the VoD, please share it with your friends. Let us know in the comments what you thought about this. And give us a like and give us a subscribe. Casey, anything else?
Well, as always, if you're interested in, if you've got an interesting product you'd like us to review, or there's some bit of information you'd like to point out to us, just give us an email at theatomicsalt@gmail.com.
And if you're from Spartan, Casey really wants to hear from you.
I will have your baby. I can't really, but I would like to. If I could, I would, guys. Because we're the Atomic Salt, and we've just blown your mind.
Have a good one, guys.